So, when your best friend says you need to have a disclaimer in the beginning of your podcast because the lawyer in her is screaming, you do it. Here's my disclaimer: I am not a doctor, I am not a therapist, I am not even an expert. I am you. I am bringing information to you as I see it, but don't take my advice. Make your own choices and make them good choices. On with the show.
Welcome to the podcast where we talk about cannabis.
Community violation. Code Green Plant.
Hello and welcome to Code Green Plant, a Simply Vibin' production. I'm Christi Chanelle and I'm here with my co-host Phoebe James.
Hey everybody.
We have two special guests today. One is my best friend. I've known her since I was 5 years old, and she's an attorney with a passion for animal rescue, so it's a perfect fit for her to make her introduction here. Then we have Sam. You have seen her before. What episode was that, Sam?
I was on the history of cannabis and
right.
THC. It was about a month or so ago, I believe.
Yeah, so you've seen her or heard her in that episode. So she's back, and that was a very popular episode, so I knew we had to have her back pretty soon. Today we're going to talk about animals and CBD. I don't know a lot about this area, so I knew we needed to talk about it so I could fill in some of the blanks and gaps that I have when it comes to this. I do know all humans have an endocannabinoid system, and we make our own cannabinoids, and so do animals. So it is a perfect fit, and as everybody knows, it watches us. The cannabis plant also makes cannabinoids. So welcome, you guys. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be here.
It's good to be back.
Yeah. So where are we going to start? Lori, why don't you tell me a little bit about why you're and have such a passion for animals?
Oh wow.
I mean, that's a broad question.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can narrow
I
it down.
Steve and I, my husband, we have always separately had animals growing up and then together. But it really was, for us, we always rescued. It just was just kind of the way it went. But I don't think I really fully appreciated the animal crisis, the shelter crisis, the homeless animal crisis that we have in this country until we rescued our dog Foxy in 2012. And she was your classic throwaway baby. Like, the people treated her like crap, tied her up, left her outside. She was completely diseased, emaciated, starving to death. And she escaped and then ended up, kind of a stray dog walking the street. Someone we knew picked her up, and the very long story is she went to the local shelter where she went on a stray hold for the legally required time, which I think here in New Jersey is 10 days. So the shelter can't treat them or do anything until they find out if the owner is, walking away from them, or if they can't find the owner. And so she almost died in the shelter because she was so forlorn and so depressed and sad and just broken that, thank God the people didn't come forward. They were able to treat her. She was full of, parasites and all sorts of horrible things. She was a dog that really at her best should be 26 pounds, and she was 16 pounds when she was found. And so, we then went through the whole shelter process of following her until she was ready to be released for foster and eventually adoption. But what the people at the shelter basically told us was, she's unadoptable. She's an old dog with medical issues. Nobody's going to want her. And that was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? She was the sweetest dog. She had the most amazing disposition for a dog that had been treated like trash. And you tell me no one's going to adopt this girl? And so, we took on a foster situation with her, never expecting to keep her. because I was never a dog person, to be honest. And then she just changed us forever. And, it was through her story and her journey and all the people that kind of rallied around her that made me realize that there's a million Foxies out there that people say are basically unadoptable, and nobody's going to want them because they're old or they have special needs or whatever it is. And the bottom line is, every day in this country, shelters euthanize animals daily because they don't have enough room for them and because they don't think anybody wants them. And that's the reality. In this country, every day, hundreds and thousands of animals are being euthanized, perfectly healthy animals. And it's a problem.
It's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's heartbreaking. Sam, what about you? Tell me a little bit about you and your love for animals.
I've just always had dogs, kind of where Lori's always had cats, and it's kind of been dogs on our side. I was never really a cat person because my dad and I had always been allergic to them, so I've never really had the experience with cats, and I wish I could because they just seem like such cool animals. But growing up, I was always such an animal person, so we were like, all right, dogs, and my whole family is dog obsessed. So I'd always had dogs growing up, and I knew when I moved out I would have them. And very similar to Foxy, my first dog on my own, Lobo, he was at a kill shelter. He had 24 hours before, he was going to be euthanized. And I was like, oh my God, I have to take him. And I'll never forget when she brought him to me, he immediately walked in, and I'm sitting on the couch because she's like, yeah, he's a little bit timid. So, we'll make it real casual. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to be sitting down. He can approach me. He immediately came up, jumped on the couch, and laid in my lap. So like the whole time I'm signing paperwork, he's just heavily pushing down into me, and just like, and we were the best friends until he passed in 2020, and he lived to be 15 because he was 5 when we adopted him. So he had heartworm, so we had to get him through that, and that was really rough. They think that might be why he got dumped, because somebody didn't want to or couldn't deal with that. And yeah, he was kind of the start of the dog journey, because then we got Bronson, who recently passed back at the beginning of October, and his mom, she was a real cute little corgi, got dumped on a buddy of mine's porch, and so they didn't know she was pregnant until a couple weeks later she had 9 puppies. Wow. And so, yeah, we were like, oh my gosh. So she's like, do you know how to bottle feed puppies? I was like, I'll give it a go. And so I raised Bronson from a 4-week-old puppy. And, I know that's way too soon to have them, but they just couldn't deal with all of those dogs. So we're like, we're going to take one anyway. So the least we can do is at least try to take that stress off of you. So yeah, I had him from literally a baby until he passed at 12. He had really aggressive dementia, which made him in turn very aggressive. And it was very hard. It was different than Lobo, who had a really long, awesome life, and Bronson did too, but it was just a little bit more difficult because of how it just dementia, same as in people, it just affected his brain to where he just within a year went from being the dog who, he kind of a jerk. He was kind of, very opinionated, very independent little dog, but it just turned him into a completely different animal. And it was really sad to watch that happen. But for a long time, one of the things that seemed to help him, he was on a couple different meds too, but CBD, the Honest Paws, is the ones that I've typically gone through. They're a company out of Colorado. We use those with him, and because he had some back issues too, and legs, so we think his pain could have been a part of it too. But it really helped to kind of, I don't want to say draw it out, because that's not the right wording, but it helped to lengthen the time that I got to spend with him until it just got to be too much. But now the crew that we're left with, I've got Lyra. We got her, my husband used to work at the Dallas Zoo, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with Dallas Zoo. You Yanks might not be, but that's all right.
I'm cutting that.
But it's our local zoo, but it's surrounded by a not great area of South Dallas, and there's a lot of dogfighting and stuff. And she wandered up to him, and she had a collar, but it was real chewed up, and she was skin and bones. I'll need to find an early picture of her because she just looks like a little skeleton, but she was just such a freaking fighter. And so she wandered right up to my husband and was just like, hey, I'm going to come home with you. And just stayed with him all day. And I'll never forget, I was pulling up to work and my husband's like, hey, so I found a dog. Okay, she kind of found me, but I think I'm going to bring her home. And I was like, you say no more. By all means, say less. Bring the dog home.
Say less.
And yeah, and it was so sweet because that was, early in our relationship. We were not, we were getting by financially, but new dog time was intense. But she, the whole Dallas Zoo contributed money so that we could adopt her, get her vet bills paid, and, get kind of a jump start with her. And good thing they did because she wound up having parvo. And I don't know for sure, but it really looks like she might have been a bait dog because she was all chewed up in her ears and had scars. She's fantastic now. She's very, there's a picture that I sent Christi, and it's with her little paws crossed and her perfect ears all pricked up. She's very sophisticated, very sassy. And then we've got Arvid. He's our Doberman mix, and oh my god, just the goofiest, sweetest dog. We found him through my brother-in-law had sent us some pictures from I don't know if anybody's familiar with Imgur, but it's just kind of like a share site, and it's not a social media, but in that same kind of vein, somebody had posted about finding him, and we were like, oh my god, he looks just like our female dog, we got to get him. And so we drove down to San Antonio and picked him up, and he had been dumped at a 7-Eleven down there, so we call him our garbage dog. Because he literally, when they found him, he was just sitting in the trash. I know, it was so, and him too, skin and bones, and again, he was dumped because something was wrong with him. He has a blood condition. Actually, he just went to get some of his shots today because he's got to go to multiple appointments throughout the year. He was a hemophiliac for a while. Like if he bled, it got a little nick on his ear. It was everywhere. I have some really horror show almost pictures from just tiny little wounds where it would just go dumping out of him. But again, he's gotten so much better. I've gotten really lucky in that we've found some really cool dogs, and even with a lot of the medical issues that they have had, we've been able to get a lot of them through them so easy. I've been very fortunate, and we've been very lucky with how things have been. The newest one, Zeke, we got him through a rescue it was road trip for paws, and they're out of Capel in Texas, I believe. And they go, yeah, there you go. It's probably very close to you. We've been up your way quite a few times seeing some of their dogs. Mm-hmm. And we landed on Zeke because we wanted a companion for Arvid, because Arvid's always been around older dogs. Lyra was older when we got him, and then obviously Bronson was too, so he's never really had a little companion to play with. And oh my god, after the first 12 hours of them kind of getting used to each other, and it was very intimidating for Zeke to come into this huge Doberman that is all in his face and so excited, but very quickly his personality came out, and they're both just big dork. We were joking about it because we're like, we'd love to bond with this new dog, but he just has so little interest in us. He's obsessed with Arvid. It's just so sweet. I love a good rescue story, and it just makes a really thankful dog, because a lot of them have come from such shitty circumstances that they just have a completely, I don't know, it's just everything that they do, there's just so much joy in it because they've not been able to have that yet. They've not had a squeaky toy. They've not had a bone that's their own, or a bed that's their very own. And it's just, I don't know, I'm addicted to that, to watching that happen. Two of them have separation anxiety, so it affects my home as well. But in a roundabout way, that's kind of where we've experimented with CBD with them for separation anxiety, and as the older ones have gotten older, for joint and hip pain. And for both situations, it can definitely have a big impact on their quality of life.
You had mentioned earlier that one of your dogs had dementia. And I wanted to cue in Lori here, because didn't Foxy have something like that towards the end of her life as well?
Yeah, I was actually going to pipe in, Sam, and say that Foxy had canine cognitive disorder, which is essentially the technical name for, doggy dementia. And it is, to your point, exactly like human Alzheimer's. I have a lot of experience with human Alzheimer's as well. Both my mother-in-law and father-in-law had it. And so when Foxy first looked at me for the first time with that sort of empty, kind of confused look, I thought, oh my God, she reminds me of my mother-in-law. And it was like the freakiest thing. But yeah, we went through 2 years, almost 2 years with that. And at her absolute worst, she was getting herself stuck, in places and couldn't quite figure out how to eat on her own and things like that. And that actually is sort of the segue to I found a support group on Facebook. It was a closed private Facebook group started by a woman in Texas, who is the sweetest woman ever. And she had a basset hound that had canine cognitive disorder. And so she started this group looking for support and help, and started out like 50 of us, 100 of us. The group now is about 18,000 people worldwide. And I still participate in the group, even though we lost Foxy in 2015. And I'm an administrator on the page now. And one thing that we're seeing a lot of is, folks have turned to CBD products for some of the symptoms, like you mentioned, the aggressive. There's, a lot of dogs get aggressive or just get very anxious. So there's like the anxiety piece, there's the pacing and the circling and all these sort of anxiety based symptoms. And then they don't sleep and they sundown, and there's all these different things. And then to your point, the arthritis and the, sort of that back leg, hind leg kind of stuff that goes on as they get older. And so I'm seeing that a huge amount of people in this group all over the world, specifically in the UK and other European countries, they are very big on using CBD to address a lot of these symptoms. And that's kind of where Christy and I got to talking about how CBD is being used in pets. And, there are some people that say they try it and it does nothing, but, I think it depends on the size of the dog. It depends on the quality of the product that you're using. I do think that most people in the group use non-THC, the products that do not contain the THC, because there is a concern about that and how that might impact the behavior of the animal. But I think that people are finding success with high quality products is really what I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And the quality of the product, like you say, that seems to be the biggest thing. THC, I've always stayed away from that just because in my life of being a marijuana consumer myself, I have always heard the written rule from, older people who've told me, or to current research, is that THC can be toxic to dogs, and it can really have a hard impact. I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's the same for cats, but I know for dogs, it in pretty small quantities can be pretty bad for them. So I don't know if it's a brain chemistry thing or how it affects them mentally, but I know as it goes through their system, it can have a lot of liver issues, where alternatively, CBD has been found to kind of be better for kidney function and, like Lori said, the cognitive issues. It can really kind of turn some of those around. And I had even found some stuff where, obviously, research in a lot of this stuff is in the very early stages, because they're going to focus on human research and human quality before the FDA is going to get too involved in the animal side of it. So you have to hope that the group that you're going through, or the that's creating the product that you're buying, you just have to make sure that they are trustworthy, that they're doing at least some sort of research into their own product and the quality of product that goes into it too. Kind of why I liked Honest Paws. And I would like to talk to you, Lori, about y'all's product, because I'm always looking for a high quality, trustworthy product. Like you said, for some dogs, it doesn't affect them at all. For some, it affects them differently. I've found the same to be true in THC and CBD in humans. Size matters too. My bigger dogs, the Doberman, we we've used some CBD. It was mainly when he got neutered because he was just having such a hard time relaxing, even after his pain meds and stuff had run out, just because I don't know, he's a very sensitive dog and he does not like feeling weird. He took anesthesia and stuff really hard, and so the CBD treats, I didn't want to give him too many. Really pay attention to your doses, but yeah, it didn't seem to affect him as much as it did Lobo or Bronson.
You did bring up a really good thing about THC being toxic, so I wanted to go look it up and see what I could find. So I found an article with Michigan State University, the School of Veterinary Medicine, and it does say that. It says, animals and marijuana, not a good combination. Marijuana is toxic to cats, dogs, and horses. Animals process many compounds differently than humans do, and as a result, many foods and medications that are not safe for us are not safe for them. These include, and then it goes into the different things that, sweeteners and all that other stuff. But THC, it does say, is a toxic cannabinoid for dogs, cats,
okay, cool.
and horses.
I've seen that, and I've always been told that, but I just wasn't sure if, you never know what's an old wives' tale and what.
What are some things that are toxic to animals that you know of?
Oh, for dogs, yeah.
Chocolate. Mm-hmm.
Chocolate's a big one. Mushrooms, a lot of what do you call it? Nightshade plants, yeah. Tomatoes, vining plants, grapes. Oh my God, grapes and raisins are huge. They're so bad for animals.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly ones with liver issues. But a lot of stuff seems to come back to the liver. They don't seem to process stuff the exact same way we do, and so a lot of stuff really can impact their liver. And I know it was a girl at work, it was quite a few years ago, but she had a boxer that they found dead in the kennel the next morning. And I know I was trying to think of a way to phrase that wasn't so blunt, but I was like, well, it is one. Yeah, there's not. And it was, she had found out that her kids had been feeding the dog grapes, like a lot of grapes, the night before, and that was what they had liver failure. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sad. But that's why they have those kind of things posted. Like our vet, every single room that you go in, there's a list of foods that have had recalls. And they update it constantly. There's a list of toxic human foods for dogs, like peanut butter. You would think, oh, dogs love peanut butter. There's peanut butter and all kinds of dog stuff. But xylitol, which is, I believe, the sweetener that is used in some peanut butters, is so toxic for dogs. It's really bad.
Okay.
And I'm sure a lot of that carries over to other domesticated animals as well, but I know for a fact that it's pretty bad for dogs.
Phoebe, I know you also have some dogs. You want to tell us a little bit about those? Your animals?
My dogs?
Your dogs, they matter. They deserve a spotlight moment.
Matter.
Spotlight moment.
My dogs, I'm surprised you don't hear them somewhere in the background barking at
We
somebody.
usually do.
I know. I have Blue, and I forget how old he is, probably 5.5. We got him. He was 2. We got him. We had 2 dogs for a long time, a boxer mix and a cocker spaniel, and they both passed away. So some time went by, and we decided we were ready to get another one. So we got Blue about a year after the last one passed, and we just went to the Fort Worth shelter. My sister told me they had a free adoption that weekend, or that week. So we went and walked through, and honestly, it was so hard. It's heartbreaking, and then it's hard to even tell what would be a good dog for. Because I had an elderly person living with me and a 5-year-old, and they're all so scared in there. And we wanted a big dog, and they're all just like barking, and it's hard to tell what's going to be the right dog when they're all scared and freaked out and seem scary, some of them. And so I just went back to the counter and asked them, "What do you have a dog you'd recommend?" And one of the guys who worked out there with them took us to a dog, and it was one I'd actually seen and passed because he was a little scary. He was like jumping and barking and very like, oh. I'm going to just keep going, but he let him out, and we met him, and it went okay. And so we went ahead and all right, we're going to try it, and took him home that night. And I was a little uneasy the first night, I would not lie, because he was a big dog, and I didn't really know him. It's like, that's how you should be, I guess, a little hesitant with large dogs that you don't know. And got him home, and it's been just wonderful. He's the best dog we've ever had, probably. He's my dog. I'm his person too, so that's probably why I am really partial to Blue. He's just a good dog, and he's, yeah, just a pretty and a good dog. And
He is so cute. Oh my God.
yeah. And we wanted another one, and so we were wanting a puppy, but we wanted one from a shelter, and it's kind of hard to get a puppy from a shelter, honestly. They go pretty quick. Everyone wants a young dog, and it's, they don't want the older ones, it seems like. And we went to get one we found on the website over the weekend, so we went as soon as they opened to try to get that one, and I get there 20 minutes early, and there was a lady outside, and I walk up, and I'm like, what are you here for? And she said, I'm here for Kim. I'm like, I'm here for Kim. So they opened the door, 10, 15 minutes later, and she got to go in first, of course. But they ended up saying, like, well, it's not open all the way right now. It's only open if you're here for a specific dog. We open to the public in 30 minutes. And so she was there first, so she got to go in first and see Kim. And then the guy came out, a couple minutes later and was like, she's going to adopt Kim, so you can go ahead and go. And I'm like, well, I came all the way here. Do you have any other puppies? Can I just come in and look? And he didn't want to let me in, but he finally was nice enough and let me in. And they just had a litter of 4 puppies they released, so they weren't on the website yet because they just came available that morning. So, yeah, I wanted a girl. I took the one girl they had, and she's been a very sweet puppy, too. She's a great Pyrenees mix. I've never had experience with them, but
my goodness, yeah.
she's wonderful. Yeah, she's so sweet. She has such a sweet demeanor. So she's my little baby girl. Honestly, like, brings the other female energy into the house, and I do treat her like a little girl.
I also have a dog. His name is Bailey. I know, a very common dog name, but it was Trevor, and he was like 7, so we ended up with Bailey, but it fits him so well. And I didn't get him from a shelter. It just so happened a friend of mine knew somebody that had too many puppies, and so I ended up sending a message to them on Facebook, and they had these puppies and they were free and they had to get rid of them. And so Bailey was 7 weeks old, and so we went over there, and I had all 3 of my kids with me at the time. We went over there, and we were just like instantly in love. And yeah, that's our story. It's a very boring story. Now my daughter, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was meant to be. It was the timing. Everything was perfect. I mean, he was supposed to always be ours, but my daughter keeps saying, "I want another puppy," and I'm like, "No." But
You should have 1, 2.
I know.
That's 2.
So my heart wants another puppy, but my mind knows that that's not a smart thing. You know
They're
what I
a lot
mean?
of work. Puppies are so much work. They're like
Yeah.
They really are.
I'm
you
done
gotta
with
wake up with them in the
babies
middle of the night
in
yeah.
general.
Yeah,
I'm a mom of 3. I'm done raising people and animals.
We always talk about that, and because we've generally, aside from Lobo, we've always wound up with younger dogs, because our older dogs, it's just kind of easier to introduce a younger dog into an older dog pack. And oh my gosh, yeah, having Zeke again, it's like, oh, okay, there are bones all over my house, and there's just toys and beds and blankets, and everything is strewn everywhere, and there's just constant.
My dog hides his toys. I mean, literally, like, within 3 hours of playing with it, it's gone. Every single time. And he's not eating them. He's not eating them. I find
Just
them later.
stash
I'm like,
'em.
what the hell? Why do you gotta hide them? Don't you want to play with them? I mean, I'm just...
So it's like he's digging and burying it for later.
Yeah, I know. I
But
guess
he's hiding it.
I guess it's like when we, put survivor things in cans and stuff. He's got to be ready in case of the apocalypse.
You never know when there's going to be a chew shortage, so you got to keep them and hide them away.
I guess. So now I know that you had asked, or you had said that you wanted to find out some good products from Lori. Lori, you mentioned that your friend has products.
Yeah, so I know Roberta from Sheba Rescue of New Jersey. They're a small private rescue. They pull from high-risk shelters or anywhere where they find out that there's a Shiba Inu in need or a Shiba mix. They specialize in Shibas because they are a very challenging breed, and many people get them because they look like little tiny teddy bears when they're babies. But they're very active dogs. They're really like a small Akita. They're in the Akita family, and they're small Akitas. So they have a lot of very interesting and difficult tendencies if you don't know how to deal with a Shiba. So anyway, that they focus on rescuing Shibas in need, and she actually sells two different products that when you purchase directly through her, they benefit the rescue. So basically, all proceeds go to the rescue. And she has products from a company called Medterra, Medterra, and Hemp Lucid. And essentially, these are both very high quality products from the US, third party tested. Both, she sells CBD oil for humans and animals. So they do offer one that does have THC, but the two non-THC containing products are for the animals. So I can certainly provide information. I gave Christy the rescue's email address and other information, but they are on Facebook. It's Shiba Rescue of New Jersey. The woman's name is Roberta. She's an amazing human being. She and her family run this rescue, and they depend heavily on people fostering because it's not a facility, it's their home. So, they rescue and then they depend on a small rescue foster network that, step up and take on a dog. The one thing I wanted to mention that was kind of, you all brought up, unexpected puppies and puppies from, how you ended up with puppies. But, that's another huge issue. So I'll just get on my soapbox for a second. But yeah, spay and neuter, it's the key to everything. It's the life of the existing animal is better and longer and healthier when animals are spay and neutered. But, I know that in certain parts of the country, typically in Texas and other southern states, there's a lot more people that see animals as property and not as family members. And so they don't fix their animals. And, this happens all over the country, not just in Texas. It happens in New Jersey. It happens everywhere. They don't fix their animals. They leave them outside and then they just keep having babies. And so this is why we have a shelter crisis. This is why we have a homeless animal crisis. That, if nothing else, is another huge message, is just everybody should be spay and neutering their animals. It's for the best for everybody, including that animal.
Yes, Bob Barker, yes. It's so true. Another big issue in Texas, two issues. Dogfighting is a huge disgusting thing down here. And that is why you end up with so many poor pit bulls and pit mixes, and even not necessarily what most people would probably classify as a pit bull, but staffies, dogos, all these poor dogs that are just dying in shelters constantly because they'll either get out of fighting rings, and a lot of them, because these dogs are so pervasive, can get out of these situations and completely make 180s and be perfectly fine family dogs. Some of them can't. It's it's not always the fairy tale ending, unfortunately. But there's, oh my god, when we were looking for Zeke, just looking through the amount of dogs that are in rescues and in shelters, the dog fighting thing down here is horrible. And another thing, something I've noticed since we've had a Ring camera, you get involved in something called neighbors, so you end up with a lot of lost dog notifications. There are, and I love huskies, but much like you mentioned with Shibas, that it is not a breed for everybody. I've always wanted a Shiba or a husky, obviously, because they're gorgeous dogs, they're cool dogs, but they're intense. They're really intense dogs. And there's the amount of people that have huskies in Texas that get out. It's just, why do you have that dog here? We do not have the climate for you to have this cold weather dog. This is a above the Mississippi line breed. I think it's almost kind of cruel to have those kind of intensely double coated dog breeds down here. Not all of them. Some double coated dog breeds can regulate themselves a little bit better, but huskies in particular are the one that I've noticed down here, that it's just like, why do you have it? Because not only is it that, is you're trying to make it this it can live in my apartment kind of dog, when it just can't. People just aren't doing the research on the breeds that they're getting. What do you call it? It's like fad breeds.
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, which unfortunately Shibas are a big part of, because they're so cute, and there's these people who will have them and do these super cute videos with them online, but these are the only dog these people have. It's their hyper focus is the behavior of this dog, and they really, really work hard with them. But that's the thing, is they take a lot of hard work. That is a very, as I'm sure Lori is well aware, that is a stubborn dog breed.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the dogs that end up being dumped or left on the street or left in the yard, people don't realize what they're getting themselves into. They don't have the space, they don't have the room, they don't have a yard. These dogs need to be exercised. They're big dogs, they're, active dogs. I think they say like pure Shibas and Jindos can like jump over your typical fence. Like they can jump that high. They're quite agile. Our Foxy was believed to be a Shiba and Jindo mix. So she had Shiba and Jindo qualities, which are all very, very intense qualities. So these are not dogs that just, sit on your lap and take care of themselves. They need to be exercised. They need to be taken care of. They need to have space. And people get these, like you said, in a little apartment, and then they don't know what to do because the dog's tearing up the place because they don't have anywhere to go. One other thing you brought up, Sam, which is interesting because you said it's kind of a Texas thing and is big for you guys, but it's an inner city thing. Anywhere where you have inner city, any big city, dog fighting, absolutely. It's such an urban practice, and it's so well accepted in the urban and inner city community. And so we have it all around in Philly and Newark, and we have a ton of dog fight rings that have been broken up over the last few years. And, now it's getting a lot more attention than it used to. But Michael Vick was sort of the eye-opening situation, I think, for America, that these very well-off individuals, unfortunately, are parts of these situations. They pay a lot of money for these fights. And, thankfully, most of his dogs were rescued and they were nursed back to health through various rescue groups, and Best Friends Animal Society took many of them that were like considered to be non-adoptable. And now they live out their lives at the sanctuary out in Utah. But most of them were actually reformed and adopted and went on to have pretty good lives. We still reward people like Michael Vick, right? He went to jail and then he came out and his life didn't change one bit. So it sort of speaks to what an effed up, mentality it is to treat animals like trash and like objects and like possessions, because that's how a lot of people see dogs. It's a possession, it's a money maker. They use them to breed, and it's, once they're done breeding, they throw them away. And that's the problem. I'll get on my soapbox about puppy mills now. I mean, it's just this pervasive problem. And you get back to why we're here, Sam, both of us, we've seen, and Phoebe and Christi, we've all seen the horrors, right, that happen when people do this to animals. And so one thing that is important to notice that there are things like natural remedies like CBD and other things that can help with the anxiety and the aggression and all the things that come out of being mistreated, whether it's, separation anxiety because they're so afraid that you're going to leave them or they're going to be abandoned.
I will say, also, your animal sits there, or if you have the money to put them in doggy daycare or, care for the day, they're waiting for you. When you get home, you're the first thing they want to see, and it's like, just take a minute and think about that. They're there. They don't ask for anything. They just want you to love them. And I think that's what this whole show is about loving your animal and tuning in and knowing what they need as their only source of care. So I so appreciate you guys being here, but before we leave, I just want to ask, is there anything else that you want to say that we haven't covered yet? And I'll start with Lori.
No, I think we covered the gamut.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Christy, for having me.
Oh, of course. And Sam?
The conversation with your vet is always so important too, when it comes to anything about your pet, but particularly with any product that you're interested in introducing into your pet's care. To stay on the subject of CBD, consult with your vet and see what their opinions are, if there's any products that they recommend. Point number 2, do your research. Find a good brand, find a good group like Lori's group, and they care about these products. It's not about the dollar, it's about the impact on the animal's life.
Well, I appreciate you guys all being here. Phoebe, did you have any last words?
No, ma'am. I just wanted to thank Lori and Sam for coming on.
Of course.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. You guys are always so thought out and prepared and intellectually, spoken. I just love you guys. Okay, so remember to hit the like button, the subscribe button, leave us a review. I mean, that would be really cool if you could leave us a review. Comment. We want to hear from you, and we will bring it up in the show. So thank you for being here. Have a great day. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of Code Green Plant was sponsored by Simply Vibin LLC. Code Green Plant is a Simply Vibin production hosted by Christi Chanelle along with her co-host Phoebe James. This podcast is not intended to be used for medical advice and is solely the opinion of the host. Please consult your physician. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Want more? Visit www.simplyvibin.com. And a special thank you to the core group of people who helped with the creation of the Code Green Plant podcast. We appreciate you simply vibing with us.
Code Green Plant.